Morning, everybody. I'm super excited to welcome Raegan Wilson from Reply. Raegan, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Raegan Wilson with Reply. We are an ecosystem consulting firm. I lead our ecosystem automation team, and we love helping our customers enhance, optimize, and implement their partner experience. And I'm the VP of Ecosystem Innovation and Solutions at Reply. We've been around for about 20 years, and we love helping folks optimize their ecosystem go-to-market strategies.
Wow, that's amazing. There are a lot of big words there, so we're going to double click on every one of them. But before we get going, maybe you want to take a minute or two, kind of introduce yourself and your background, like, what you've done. You have an amazing background. I know we've been connected for a while. We've gone back and forth. So I think it'll be great for our audience to hear.
Yeah, thank you. I like to say that I'm a product of the channel. One of my very first jobs in college was managing partners for a little company called Zircom. I made PCMCIA cards. So if you're that old to understand, back in the day, you had to plug in a card to your laptop to connect it to the internet. And we were actually one of the first companies. They were out there trying to get people to convert to wireless or Wi-Fi, those things that we would never think about checking into a hotel or staying anywhere without. But we were in charge of trying to get partners to sign up to sell Wi-Fi and put it into hotels and hospitals and all the fun places that we take for granted today. That company got bought by Intel. I went on to manage partners at Intel, Cisco, Microsoft. I led some sales teams, but I've always been in the channel. And then I spent about 6 or 7 years working at a SaaS tech vendor, a PAR tech vendor. And I've been consulting on partner technologies for the last 10 years. And I love being on this side of the table where I'm able to be, really platform agnostic and help our customers solve their ecosystem challenges and find the right technologies and tool sets to really optimize that partner experience.
That's pretty amazing. So before we get into partner tech and kind of talk about, what you're seeing from different brands and with the evolution of their ecosystem, let's go back a little bit. When you started your journey, what did the channel look like? What did the ecosystem look like? And is it the same? Is it different? Like, what has happened since then?
Oh, I think I'm lucky that I've been around for so long that I have seen the evolution a couple of times in channel over time. So what it looked like when I first started back, and I won't say how long ago, but over 2 decades ago, it was back in the day of box builders. So for those of us who grew up with value-added resellers, they were building computers and they were building servers and they were putting all those components together. I remember going to partner offices and seeing all of their certifications taped on the wall or framed, and their little tchotchkes from all the different vendors sitting out on their, on their desks and on their tables. They were always wearing a branded shirt from whatever vendor they got the latest swag for. But those days are long gone. We don't see the days of the value-added reseller being a box builder anymore. And in fact, I remember back in the day, those folks that didn't adopt the wireless networking, a lot of them went out of business. They didn't morph their business as the times were changing. It was a very big shift from going from being a box builder to finding different value-added services. And so I saw that shift in the market all those years ago. And I think we saw another one probably 10 years later as we started to see the shift to cloud. Those partners that didn't get on board with the cloud services started to fall by the wayside. And we continue to see that evolution. I think we're at the next juncture of that with AI. And it's been kind of a crazy ride, but I feel really blessed to have had the opportunity to be in role or in this space for so long, to be able to see those evolutions and kind of see them change the market and change the routes to market that partners take.
So you talked a little bit about the evolution on the partner side, on the go-to-market side. Can you share a little bit of your thoughts regarding the brands? Because in the early days, you have to invest an enormous amount of money to build your own go-to-market. Then sort of the channel or other options came around. So today, as a brand, in a mid-market brand or even, enterprise, is it easier to go to market leveraging partner, or is it harder?
I think that it kind of depends on your maturity level. So it can be easy, but we're often seeing people come into it with way more complexity than is needed. And if you take the complex route of trying to serve up different tiers and all these different extra things, becomes a lot harder to get into the market. Partners really want to focus on their business model, not necessarily the brand's business model. So it's all about communicating that value to the partner and making sure it's crystal clear to them where they plug in, how they can make money, where the opportunity is, and following their route to market. And I would say the biggest shift that we've seen probably over the last decade, maybe even 5 years, is the partners now, if you think of it as a proverbial car solving the solution or solutioning for a customer, the partner's in the driver's seat and then vendors are taking that back seat. Whereas, a couple decades ago, the vendors were really in the front seat, kind of pulling the partners through. And it's very much changed. Now, we have to acknowledge, and brands have to acknowledge, that the partner is the one driving the solution as they're putting all the vendors in the car, and maybe it's a van or even a bus, as they're loading up that solution with different vendors across the tech stack. And they're the one delivering that solution to the customer end to end with the services, with all the different bits and pieces. And that's quite a shift from how things were in the past.
So from a partner perspective, I mean, that's a very important dynamic shift that you just kind of talked about. So let's talk about the composition a little bit, right? When you go back a couple of decades ago, IT guys left their IT jobs and started a reseller company or consulting company, right? Whether you're on the sales side or in the partner side, like on the tech side, you left and started companies. Do you see that trend continuing, or is there more consolidation going on? Like, what is happening on the capability front?
I don't see it as often as people leaving their corporate jobs to go start up their value-added reseller job anymore. I think what we're seeing is that services piece is becoming really, really important. And, there is still huge play for partnerships, but they look completely different than they did, 10 years ago. So I think the risk factor for a lot of folks is a much steeper pitch than it was in the past. There wasn't as much risk. Now with security and all the checks and balances that you need to have from a business standpoint, I think there's a higher barrier to entry to just go out and be an entrepreneur in this space. But I do see people leaving and joining those organizations, and the bigger organizations are getting bigger. So there's definitely that shift that's going in the market as we see the marketplaces come to life, and some of these other bigger companies really going out there and delivering on value and services solutions across the ecosystem.
That's very interesting. So let's go back maybe a couple of segments, right? Like you look at tech, telco, and then kind of manufacturing. Do you deal with both of those segments, or one more than the other?
We definitely play a ton in high tech and fintech. We deal with some telcos as well. So we're kind of all over the board, I would say, not just from like an enterprise standpoint, but all the way down. We're servicing vendors that are, across the board. We have a fair share across, all shapes and sizes.
What about like traditional manufacturers, like industrial manufacturers?
Absolutely. They're the ones that are sometimes struggling with coming along, right? They were used to the days of old. A lot of their systems are antiquated in their processes. And so we're seeing them kind of struggle along the path to get modernized, I would call it, and optimized. We see a lot of the newer companies that are coming into the space and trying to add in ecosystems and channels. They're much quicker to market because they don't have maybe the tech debt that some of these larger organizations have. It's always so interesting to me. The bigger the company, the harder things seem to be. So as we climb up the enterprise scale and work with the bigger companies, the challenges just seem so daunting there. Just to get some little simple thing done, you would think that they were the most well-oiled machines, and unfortunately, they're not. And it's sometimes interesting to be able to sit on the side of the table and say, you're not unique. Most of the other big players in your space are in similar situations.
I did a session with Jeff Winner. He talks a lot about Industry 4.0, and, we're strictly talking about the evolution in manufacturing. And he's talking about how in 4.0, IT and OT is kind of converging, and you need really a leadership level approach to bring in the things that are needed on the floor from an automation perspective. Now they cannot be an island anymore because they connect into an overall infrastructure where you have to worry about cybersecurity, data centralization, a whole bunch of other stuff. So if you take these two segments, IT versus manufacturing, I'm using the word versus intentionally, Do you see differences in go-to-market style and people competency?
It's a tricky one. We don't typically get all the way down into the weeds on that. So I don't have a great answer to say, yes, absolutely. There's so many intricacies that are different because we're kind of playing up a level when we're looking at these companies. But I will say from the Reply standpoint, so we're part of Reply. Reply is a $2+ billion global company. We focus across several different areas of practice. But as a Reply, we do a lot with AI, do a lot with manufacturing. There's a lot of robotics, a lot of things that I hadn't been exposed to until Spur was acquired by Reply about 3.5 years ago. But it's very interesting to see what's happening on the manufacturing side as they're trying to scale up and add robotics and add things that are optimizing that. But then they also have to look, to your point, at the security elements, because all it takes is one virus to take down the entire fleet, right? And so there's a lot of different things that are coming to the mix as we see that scale into a different realm of adoption of robotics and automation. But it's a pretty cool thing to sit on the kind of the sidelines and watch, some of our sister companies as they're doing things with automotive and manufacturing and really optimizing some, what I would potentially see as like legacy practices. They're scaling them through the roof. It's kind of amazing. I was talking to one of our sister companies. They were working with a toilet paper manufacturer, and it was amazing to see the scale that they were able to put in just by layering some AI into some of their practices and into their platforms to see where shortages were and optimization opportunities. And it was amazing at the efficiencies that they were able to gain. So we're definitely seeing manufacturing pick up some of the benefits that AI and automation are bringing into the space from a Reply standpoint.
Awesome. So let's take one segment at a time. Let's kind of stay on IT tech and hardware software kind of together. If you take that ecosystems, those ecosystems, one of the big words that we hear is marketplaces, right? Predominantly. 5 years ago, people were kind of thinking, oh, this is just that you go get your app listed. But today the velocities are very different. Going back to your analogy where the partners are now driving the car, how are partners driving the car through marketplaces to the end customer with these multiple brands on their back?
Well, I think partners are helping customers understand how to work their marketplace spend and how to set that up appropriately. And then that allows the partner to drive that proverbial car down that marketplace route and just pick up the different pieces as they've set up that spend. And it's interesting because we do kind of work across multiple marketplaces, Azure, AWS, but it's so interesting. Some companies are really good at their marketplace spend management and others are not. And as more and more companies are adding private offers to the marketplaces, it's kind of an opportunity to say like, hey, business user or business owner, some of the partner technologies that we're working with, did you know that you can use your marketplace spend to buy some of this technology? And so we're seeing that kind of play in the ecosystem realm where I think in the past that would have never been, it's not a thing that our business users are thinking about. It's definitely something that the IT users are thinking about and the vendors and the brands, but our business users aren't familiar with it enough to know that, oh, I might be able to take advantage of the marketplace to get budget that I didn't even know was available.
So one question I ask, I guess like you who have deep background, in the partner management space is about the marketplaces. Let's say if I'm trying to build my go-to-market motion through an ecosystem, whether it's affiliate or VARs or MSPs or SIs or whatnot, do I focus on marketplace first when I'm trying to build my ecosystem, or do I go last when I have a decent amount of velocity? What is the right time? Is there a way I can evaluate whether I'm ready for marketplaces or not?
Well, the readiness level is the key. So it depends on who you are, what you're doing, who your partners are, and where you're going. And that readiness and maturity level on either side that you're trying to build is wherever it's highest is where you want to start. Because what we tend to see is folks have an idea of what they've seen done, what they've seen successful, or what someone else is doing. And they feel like, well, because we're similar to them, we can just follow suit. The challenge is the maturity level and the readiness level is not always aligned. To your competitor, you might be 4 steps ahead of them, on marketplace, or 4 steps behind them. And in the case that you're 4 steps behind, it's probably not a good place to start. There might be some other place where you have a higher readiness level, or you have more partner engagement or partner opportunity to go to market. And so I don't think that there's an easy answer to say it's A or B. I think you have to take a really hard look in the mirror and actually determine the readiness level and the maturity level that you have within your organization and the appetite that you have to put resources behind something, and then make your determination on that, and not just make a decision on, well, I think marketplace is the way to go. You've really got to suss that out.
Does it matter like what type of solution? Like, am I part of the breakfast or lunch or dinner, or am I the burger or the fries or the Coke? I mean, are there like where my solution fits in from an end customer perspective? Does it matter when I'm kind of thinking through marketplace readiness, or is it more velocity?
I don't know. I mean, we all want to be the burger. You want to be the main meal, right? The dinner or the filet mignon. But that's not the case for most of our vendors that we work with. They're always a side item, or they're the ketchup, they're the straw in the drink. And I think you have to understand where you fit in. You also have to figure out where your partners fit in. And if you have a really good handle on who your partners are, where they play, how they're going to market, that usually will help you answer the question. It's not as straightforward to say that for everybody, that's a one size fits all, because everybody's different, and each company's readiness level, the resourcing, the amount of time and effort that they can put behind something is different. And so you have to determine, what you have, how can you be successful, where are your partners currently successful, and how do you, throw accelerant on that and make sure that it's working for you, versus, trying to trudge down a path that might take you extra time or effort to get down.
So if I break down from a go-to-market perspective, let's say mid-market versus enterprise, and if I stay focused on mid-market, few lines of product, few $100 million of revenue, but I'm predominantly an attached sale. Is it easier for me today in certain categories of vendors that you're dealing with for them to find partners because others have built those go-to-market motions for them? Or is it still as hard as it used to be, in the older days when the channel didn't kind of exist?
I think it's easier because you can find those complementary solutions, and you can go look for partners that are already in that space where you can attach to it. You still have to have a strong story and a strong reason for them to do business with you. So I would say in some veins it's easier because there's more of an audience that's kind of built. But on the flip side of that, the harder part is that everybody's doing it. So how do you make sure that you as a brand rise up through the noise and that the value is communicated to that partner? And that's where that readiness and maturity comes in. Because if you can't tell the story, it doesn't matter how many partners are there that you could potentially have an attached play with. It's not going to matter to them because they aren't going to see the value that you bring as a brand and an offering.
So let's kind of build on that. So if I'm trying to go build my sort of partner base, right? And I know I can have an attached play and there are existing partners in place. Can you sort of walk us through the journey of targeting, then recruiting and onboarding? What are the typical playbooks that you recommend for companies to consider?
Well, you can always go out and look for partner locators. I kind of love those technologies because they give people who are trying to build their partner programs an opportunity to see who's out there and what they're doing already. So if you can go out and find partners that look right, that's a really good starting point from a recruitment standpoint. Again, it all starts with that programmatical piece. So what is the compelling story? What is the offer? Is it clear? Is there a value proposition that aligns with that partner's go-to-market? You have to understand what the partner cares about and how to hit that nerve for them so that they want to give you their ear. Then the wonderful thing we have access to now is AI. So leveraging AI to help you find that right partner profile, find the right partners, and go out and really knock on those doors. Then, the next step is that you have to automate those processes, because if you're going out and recruiting and you're actively recruiting, you're going to need to automate the next step so that because you're putting so much into that front step, you're not just sitting around waiting for your partners to come to you. So automation comes in really important on that next step, being able to get your partner, the prospective partners in through an application or registration process that makes it really clear to you what their value proposition is, what they look like, who they are as a company and what their goals are, so that you can then personalize the partner experience and really show that value to them in whatever partner technology you're using. I think that that's really the kind of the secret sauce is understanding who those potential partners are, having a clear value proposition, and then making sure you can automate every step and personalize every step beyond that initial registration.
So I want to go back to the AI comment that you made, that now you can leverage AI to figure out, who the potential partners are. Can you kind of walk through, double click on that a use case? Like how would you do that? Yeah.
So back in the day, it would be like you go to your competitor's partner locator, right? And you start skimming off all the partners and potentially targeting them, right? Because that's an easy place to start. But now with AI, you can have, any of the AI LLMs go out there and help you find the right partners that look a certain way. So it's creating the right prompts to figure out what you're looking for, refining, and having AI do some of the heavy lifting for you. I mean, it'll build you lists. It'll take the raw data and put it into a Excel file for you. It can help you create the value proposition. I mean, you can have it build you profiles on these partners and really dial in your messaging to go recruit. So I think that's an easy place maybe to point BDRs, the people that are trying to do that recruitment, is having them leverage AI to get as much information as possible about those partners that you think could be a good fit, having it validate for you, and then having it figure out what nerves you want to hit with those partners to really make sure that they understand, why they want to talk to you.
So let's go to the other word that you mentioned is BDR. We're hearing constantly, and I have had a few guests that are running BDR companies on the podcast talking about, how dramatically that has changed for end users because nobody picks up their phone anymore. And even if you're calling their mobile, they're kind of, voice screening you through their voicemails. So my question is, do you see a different pickup rate on the partner base? Like if you get a target and if you call 100 partners versus 100 end users, do you see a different engagement on the partner, or is it roughly the same as end users?
I mean, it's the same. I mean, I've got my calls filtered. I don't know about you, but my phone doesn't ring a number I don't know. So I'm not going to pick it up. I'm probably not even going to get a message for it. But I think it's a different tactic of how you go to someone. You're not going to get an unknown on your cell phone, but it's maybe the email, it's the LinkedIn, it's those constant hits of, hey, go check this out. It could be even going to events and kind of knocking on doors that way, but it definitely is it's very different than back in the day when I started my channel career, when we were dialing, we were measured by how many contacts we had with our partners. I mean, those days, I can't imagine that looks the same, right? We just live in a much different world, and communication looks so different for everybody that, I mean, you've got to change with the times. But I think that, again, using AI to help dial those messages in and direct you to the right people can help get those BDRs maybe one step ahead of the game. And maybe it's not even a BDR anymore. Maybe it's just, email marketing and campaigns and things from that standpoint that are helping drive that velocity in those registrations.
So let's go to the platform side a little bit, right? Because you have a lot of experience on platform. You were in a PRM company, and you sold, but on this other side now you're implementing with customers. If you look at the evolution of the ecosystem that has happened over the last 10 years or so and where it is and possibly it's going, do you think the platforms have kept pace? Do you think they've fallen behind? Do you think, are they like, what is your take on all these platforms that you've looked at?
Well, I think channel's always been behind. So if you think back 20 years ago, it was people were building their own portals, right? You were lucky if you were on a platform that was even purpose built at all. Then you kind of get into this shift towards the platform where people are moving a little bit away from that. We're building it ourselves. We now believe that we can buy something off the shelf. And now we're swinging even further towards that with, more and more people saying, I'm never going to I don't want to build it. I don't want to be dependent on IT. I want to be able to manage it myself. It's definitely shifted over the years. I think channel's always been behind in technology. I think it'll continue because we're just not running at the pace yet. So it always cracks me up when people say, "Oh, we need AI, we need all these things." Like, but you're not even doing the fundamental things well. So how do you layer on top of it all this other cool technology that is really data driven when you haven't done a good job with any of your governance across your programs, across your partners, across your data? How do we get there from here? So having said that, I think that the vendors are doing a good job adding new capabilities, getting behind AI, and getting behind what I would call like personalization, because that's really where things have been shifting towards, is really making sure that partners are getting what they want and understanding that it's not just a dumping ground and it is personalized to their business model, because nobody wants an experience that's just vanilla. They want something that's personalized to them and makes sense for them. So are we there yet? I don't think so, but we're getting much closer, and the technology is coming along. I mean, I look back, 10 years ago at the capabilities to what it is now, night and day. It's also gotten a lot more cost effective.
So let's go back. I think you said a few fundamental things that I also believe in, is that, before you put automation or platform in place, you have to have program, process, and people, foundationally built out so that you can actually leverage the technology, because you can't automate something if process doesn't exist. So is there a difference between IT versus manufacturing, like tech versus manufacturing, on a maturity scale, where they are with partner programs and process and people infrastructure?
100%. Manufacturing usually steps back in process, and I don't want to say Stone Age, but they're usually a little bit behind even just IT tech. But it always comes down to, I have my 5 Ps. So you have the people, the process, the programs, partners, and then the platform. And the platform typically comes last, but people want to flip that and they want to put it first and then try to figure out the rest. Especially now as we're seeing newer companies trying to break into channel and break into ecosystems. They really want to put the platform piece first. But tech is definitely ahead of manufacturing.
And why is that? Why? Because manufacturing has been around longer than tech.
Well, I think it's because maybe the complexities just aren't there yet from a partner standpoint. When you look at IT tech, the number or the value motions that partners bring are additive. There tends to be more of them. So we see the sell, we see the services, we see the building partners, we see the agency or the advisory partners across those, and maybe a couple other variations or combinations. And manufacturing doesn't usually have all of those. They have maybe a subset of it. And as a result, that just makes it a little easier, and their programs have kind of remained somewhat similar over time. We're definitely seeing a shift in programs to simpler times. We're definitely seeing the flattening of tiers, focus on those go-to-market motions versus partner types. The acronym soup is gone. I know you probably remember the days of, VARs and DISTs and CSPs and MSPs and ISVs, and no, it's just, do you sell? Do you service? Do you support? Like, what do you do? And maybe you do a combination of that? And then what is the program fit that aligns with that partner's business model? And not the brand or the vendor putting the name on the partner, but the partner saying, this is my business model. And then aligning the program to what the partner says they're doing.
So that's a great segue into the next part of the discussion, which is related to money, incentives. Because, previously a lot of the commission structure were tied to the type of partners, right? Yeah. And what you're saying, the labels are not that relevant anymore. Like where you touch the customers, whether you're a full lifecycle partner or a partial lifecycle partner. So can you talk a little bit about the evolution in compensation side? Let's talk about tech, and then we'll talk about manufacturing, what you have seen and what's kind of happening now.
Oh, it's super interesting. We're constantly on a daily having conversations with customers about their compensation models across the ecosystem. In fact, I was meeting with a client just on Friday. I have another meeting with them tomorrow, talking about kind of their program structure for this new incentive piece that they want to roll out. And they're doing it based on how many customers someone touches. So it's not necessarily how big those customers are. It's more of how many customers are you working with, and then your ability to get a better pricing model or incentives package is based on that, because they want more partners across their customer base. So not just one off. They're not looking for the partner that brings one deal in. They're looking for the partner that's got multiple over time. They want to reward that behavior. And I think in the past it was just, you were tiered, you got discounts or incentive packages based on what your tier was. You got a different incentives package based on what partner type you were. And while it made sense back then, I don't think that it makes sense now. I mean, as a partner, I work with you guys, with other vendors in this space. We don't take any incentives from people. We don't take referral fees. I just set it up that that's just the way we work. We don't want that, because we want to look agnostic. We want to get paid for the services that we do, and we don't want any of our customers thinking that we're doing funny business to flip-flop people on platforms because we're getting an incentive for it. And I think that there's partners in this space that don't want the financial reward. They want to win on their own merit. They want to be the trusted advisor to their customer. And as a result, those incentives have had to change over the years, because not everybody is dialed in on the dollar that they're getting from the brand. They care more about making sure that the customer gets what they need and that they're providing the value to the customer. And they want to ensure what that value is versus having the vendors control where that value motion is.
And that's what you also meant earlier, that the partners are in the driving seat. If they're the driving seat, they're deciding who to pick up and
Absolutely.
Put them in the back of their car. So that's very well said. So let's talk a little bit about, from a platform requirement perspective. You said over the last 10 years, platform provider, whether, a PRM tool or a marketing tool or whatever those tools are in the ParTech space, you said they have grown quite a bit. Do you think they have grown to a point that they're too confusing, or do you think they are okay, and we as providers doing an okay job in communicating what they are, or we're confusing everybody completely? Like, where are things at?
I'm kidding. I think that there's a lot of vendors in the space, and the island chart that lumps everybody together kind of makes it feel like everyone's created equal, and they're not. And that's the hardest part, I think, for our customers to understand, is that depending on what we usually try to figure out like what their 3 pillars are. Like, what do you really care about? Because the words, the speeds and feeds, the functionalities the words are the same. But like, do you care about self-configurability? Do you care about integration with your CRM? Like, what are the top 3 things that are the most important to you about the platform? We're to hone in on those and make sure that the platforms that we bring to the table align with those values. Because everybody does deal registration and content and onboarding and all those things, right? The words are all the same. It's the mechanics of what the definition by vendor is for each of those words that the variation is. And most of our customers don't know the questions to ask. So I think if I had a piece of advice for vendors like you guys, it would be to ask more questions of your customers, not to make assumptions that if they say deal registration, that they know what those words mean, because to them it might mean lead distribution or some different thing that it meant to the last customer. As a vendor, you really have to dig in and understand what the requirements are and not just make assumptions. And sometimes it's hard, I know, have that on both sides of the table, to want to delay things or say, tell me more about that. Like, what are you doing today? But going back to what I said earlier, that maturity and the readiness level are the drivers for all of it. If you aren't doing it today, it's hard for me to automate it for you tomorrow, because we need to figure out what that process is. And we need to know that there's some sort of program rigor around it, because if you tell me you want to do deal registration and I ask you for your deal registration rules of engagement and you say you don't have any, that causes problems when you come back to me and say, hey, Raegan and team, we just had the same, partners register the same deal. What do we do now? And I say, what do your rules of engagement say? And then you say, I don't have any. And therein lies the struggle. So maturity and readiness drive it all, and just asking the hard questions and really getting down to the nitty-gritty detail of like making sure you understand what the customer is actually asking for.
So again, when typically your customers come to you, I mean, are there two, three, four, five like categories of challenges they bring to you? Are there like there's a Pareto?
I would say traditionally, the biggest challenge that they have is that they bought a technology. They're usually blaming the platform for it not being successful. And it's really the readiness and maturity level weren't there for them to optimize in their initial rollout, or it was just a MVP and no one took ownership of it. And so we're typically coming in and helping them optimize the platform that they're already on. We don't need to usually flip people around because most of the partner technologies are great and they align with the customer's needs really, really well. There's so many capabilities and your platform has a ton of capability. It's really just making sure that they know how to use it, they know what they have, and that they can bring that partner experience to life beyond kind of the out of the box look and feel or, template, whatever they've got. And my favorite thing to hear from customers is when we, do an assessment of their partner tech stack, we come back with a set of recommendations and some ideas or some design things, and they say, I didn't know the platform could do that. And that's the challenge that I think, we typically see is they just don't know the capabilities that they have at their hands because it's not their day job. They don't run their partner tech stack all day long. They haven't been trained up for decades managing these tool sets and running them. So they just don't know how to be super effective with them.
And then what does the typical engagement look like at that point in time when you went in and did an assessment? What would you typically do?
So we typically go in and then run an optimization project. So we'll take those recommendations, let the customer prioritize them out, again, based on the readiness and based on kind of where their biggest pain points are. And then our team will just go in and execute against those elements with best practices and, the decades of experience that we have on our teams working in these tools.
Awesome. So from an execution perspective, you talked about use of AI upfront. When you're going through recruitment, it's easier to use some of these tools, write the better prompt and find who the target profile is, put together a pitch, etc. Where else are you seeing in an existing ecosystem partners that are transacting, marketing, selling, supporting, servicing? Do you see specific logical use cases for Gen AI applications?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the key challenges that we've always seen in channel, and I've been here for a minute, is content. So partnerizing content, I think Gen AI if you're not using Gen AI for content, I said this, you've got another thing you need to be. It's always been the Achilles heel of channel marketers, channel enablers. If Gen AI can help you partnerize your content, help with marketing, localization, all of those things that have always been hard and costly for channel leaders. So that's like step one, baseline, go do it right now. Your partners will thank you for it. Then we're starting to see the agentic piece. So I love agents. I build my own, and it's just about looking for opportunities of where you can plug them in to help you do those tasks that you do over and over again. Whether it's reviewing a partner's agreement, red lines, or reviewing a partner's application. If you can throw an agent on top of something to get you a couple steps closer to the finish line, that's great. We're typically seeing our customers start with internal agents, not external agents, because again, back to my point, early on, data has been a problem in the channel for a really long time. So it's hard to set agents on top of bad data, and that won't change. So we're seeing our vendors or our customers more successful with internal facing agents because there's just less risk there. It's not going to matter as much if you serve up the wrong data to a channel account manager than if you serve it up to a partner and a different partner's data. So while we're still dialing in a lot of the data on the partner facing side to get those agents more partner facing, a good place to start is looking for opportunities to leverage those agents internally. But not to say that people aren't using agents externally for partners as well. That's happening as well.
They make a lot of sense. So let's go back to the first sort of cluster of use cases on content creation. Like, can you walk us through some specific examples where AI is being used and how they're being used? Like, what are the typical?
Yeah, I'll give you the first one. Localization and translation has been a challenge for channels for decades. We typically see these tool sets being built in English and English only because the translation cost and time is just so long. And what we're seeing now is we're flattening that time and the cost with AI, because the Gen AI and localization is so much better. Typically do see customers still looking for a local review on that content, but it's much faster to get those revs in and have things in 10 or 12 languages today. And that, meeting the partners in their local language is a differentiator for a lot of companies, and especially global ones. The next use case is the partnerizing of content. The reason we have partners is because they are more trained and specialized and expert than some of the people that we hire in as sales reps. So they don't need to be spoken to or taught in the same manner that you're onboarding a brand new rep. And so it's taking the content that you have internally facing in training and shortening it up and making it more concise and useful for partners. Partners don't have a lot of time. They're not going to be spending hours and hours in your training. You need to make it very short and sweet and to the point, and take into consideration the expertise that they're bringing to the table, because that's the reason that we have those partners. So I think those are two big use cases across the localization piece, and across the enablement. That is where we're seeing the Gen AI play for content.
And then do you see use like the way, Gong and Otter and some of the tools are being used in the deal pipeline on the direct side? Have you started to see any other, those sort of applications in when it comes to actual transactions related activities?
I was actually talking to someone about this just a couple of weeks ago, and it's a much harder place to put, it's much harder to put that in the partner arena than it is in the direct sales arena, because you have control over it. So we're not seeing that play as big of a play with partners, because it's harder to implement and get them on board with downloading things and plugging things in and licensing. I haven't seen that as a really big use case across our customer base. Not to say that it wouldn't be of value, but it's a whole other learning curve to try to bring someone on board to this thought process and get a partner on board with it. We're just not seeing the traction there.
Right. And then let's go over to the second use case. You talked about internal usage. What are the typical usages that you're seeing internally?
Agents on the data side looking for partner alignment. So, maybe we need a services partner for this opportunity. Who's the best partner? Who's got the qualifications? Who's meeting the program requirements? That's a use case. Another one is, show me which of my partners are compliant, which ones aren't compliant. What do I need to do to bring them up to compliance? Next best action on opportunities. What does my pipeline look like? Do I have partners that are, performing really well? Do I have partners that are underperforming? Do we have a bunch of deals that are about to expire? Just bringing the information to the forefront, those account managers, so that they don't have to go dig for it. And again, it's all about prompting and setting those agents up across CRM or across other partner data stacks, so that you can see what's really going on with those partners that you're managing.
So are those more analytics driven, like you're really sort of querying an insights, or are they more like matching is one set of activity, how you query the database, how you match things, and then reporting, getting insights, do I have coverage? Do I have the right partner? Like where do you see most of the traction today?
I would say it's more on the transactional data. So looking at what's in the CRM, or what's in the data set that you have, typically overlaying a CRM, and the partners that you are working with. So tell me about these partners. Who do I need to work with? Who's performing? We actually wrote a set of agents for a customer, and it's, tell me who's performing, which is my best partner in region. Are there any promotions that are available for this partner that could help them get to the next tier? What opportunities do they have in pipeline? Are there any promotions against those opportunities that I should make them aware of? Can you craft me an email to send with those promotions? Those kinds of things that just make it a little bit easier for the channel account manager to get to done. They're not having to go down the list and hope that they can use their brain to pull all those things together. Because one thing that the AI will always be able to do faster is look across the data set as data is being updated. So as promotions are being added, as incentives are being added, AI will know about it. me if I'm a channel account manager, like I was back in the day, I actually have to go look at that promotion, understand the segmentation across that promotion. Is it regional? What's the timeline for it? And then I have to go and apply it to the data I look at across each of my partners. And AI can do that for us when it's set up appropriately.
So based on the velocity that you see sort of, application of these Gen AI use cases, if you have to sort of look into your crystal ball over the next 12 to 18 months, do you see these three get kind of solidified, or do you see any other new potential opportunities that will get added to this list?
Oh, I mean, I don't think we know what's going to be added, right? I think that these use cases won't go away. They'll just become more optimized and expanded upon. You'll always have the Gen AI piece because content's king. And then you'll always have the internal, how do I do this better? What will happen on the internal side is more will be expected of the reps because the efficiencies that we're going to expect them to get from AI are going to be commonplace. So we're going to expect a certain level of efficiency and them to do even more with the time that they have. So that I think will happen. Then we'll see the exposure of those agents more partner facing to help the partners make better decisions across their tech stack. I think the ultimate, if I had a crystal ball, I think the ultimate thing would be someone solving the multi-partner universe and throwing AI on top of a partner's ecosystem of vendors and making it easy for that partner to understand how they mix and match promotions across, a bunch of different things, which customers maybe are up for renewal, and understanding what bits and pieces they can pull from different vendors that might be out there, what new products are coming out, and really helping them dial in their business model and make more money and be more successful. I think that would be the coolest thing that could come. Is just how do we make our partners' lives easier, knowing that they don't just work with one vendor at a time; they're working with multiple, and that would be probably the coolest thing that could come. But I don't know that will be actualized.
That's amazing. So I have one last question, and it's mostly about you. So when you think about your journey, you had an amazing journey, right? You started on the vendor side, worked at multiple brands, went into a partner tech, now you're in consulting, and you're a leading voice as a woman in the ecosystem. So what allowed you to make these, pivots and transitions successfully from one to another, and what's in the horizon for Raegan Wilson?
I look back over my career and I think I'm so blessed to have had the opportunity to get started when I did. It was at a pivotal time in history, really, if you think about connectivity and wireless and just being part of that, starting all of that out. And then just being in the channel, because no one goes to business school. I didn't get my degree in channel. It's not a thing that's taught. So just being able to get in and get my feet wet and staying in my lane, staying in it the whole entire time, I think was number one for me, because I've always been doing what I've been doing. And that you just don't get that experience unless you've just done it the whole time. So then having the opportunity to go work on the partner tech side of things helped me understand that, we're really just solving problems. We're not selling technology. We're solving partner problems. And that then led me to the consulting piece, which is you're really just solving problems. Like that's all we do is help people solve problems, make their partners' lives easier, be more successful. Their partners are more successful. They're more successful. Everybody wins. And consulting is so much fun. I don't know from what the future brings for me. I recently became a grandma last year. That's been probably one of the coolest things in my life. And I just think it's that work-life balance of making sure that you make the time for the things that are important. I think as my career has gone on, that balance piece, it's never truly balanced, but I've tried to prioritize those family things, the personal things. Another thing that might be the next stage is that I teach Pilates and I teach bar. So what don't I do? I mean, I consult and I teach fitness classes. So maybe the next version is, the exiting of consulting eventually in retirement and just going and teaching fitness classes at resorts across the world. I don't know, but stay tuned.
Well, with that note, Raegan, I really sincerely want to thank you for being here. I would love to have you back. Looks like, you're in the middle of lots of exciting projects and the change that's happening in our industry. But thank you for being here. Really,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much for the opportunity. It's been great.